Well, today I want to discuss a few questions from this particular chapter of sexual reproduction in flowering plants that I've seen that it does come in the board examination a lot, and it actually will give you a brief like idea about the entire chapter one more time. Like it will be a revision also, plus the way of you to write the answer properly in your answer booklet. So first and foremost, every time I'll emphasis, and it has always been emphasis that to read the question properly, because only and after that you will be able to interpret the question, and then you'll be able to properly write the answers. So first of all, this particular question where it is asked that a flower of a brinjal plant following the process of sexual reproduction produces 360 viable seeds. Keep in mind, there are 360 viable seeds that are produced. So answer the following questions given the reasons. Means you need to answer this following set of questions that are given there. So what are those questions? First of all, the how many ovules are minimally involved. So it's the minimal number of ovules that are involved in making those viable seeds. Second, how many megaspore mother cells are involved in this process? What are megaspore mother cell? The one that produces the means which undergo the process of megasporogenesis and finally gives rise to an ovule. Next, number three question: what is the minimum number of pollen grains that must land on the stigma for pollination? The fourth, how many male gametes are involved in the above case? And finally, number five, how many microspore mother cells are must have undergone reduction division prior to dehiscence of anther in the above case? Those are the questions. All right. Now let's see, the basic concept is like whenever we find that the pollination is taking place, prior to the pollination definitely the process of megasporogenesis and microsporogenesis will take place, isn't it? So in case of microsporogenesis, let's stick to that first. In case of microsporogenesis, what happen is like we have the anther inside which the microspore, they will undergo two times of reductional division, meiosis 1 meiosis 2, two type division will take place. And after those two divisions, what we are going to find that it will lead to formation of this microspore tetrad, this microspore tetrad right here, this one. So microspore tetrad, each and every one of those microspore tetrad means there are four cells having haploid number of nucleus, sorry. So will actually undergo like a little bit of differentiation and will transform into the microspore, which will later develop into the pollen. Now for pollen, it will actually like take part in process of mitosis. So it will undergo two times mitosis and will lead to the formation of the pollen. But keep in mind, the microspore is not entirely dividing into it, because here it is kind of a nuclear division that will take place in a way, because the pollens are formed of one pollen is formed of one microspore only, but the pollen will be consisting of two generative cells. Right there you can see two generative cell and the central large this vegetative cell. So there are, like even in this case only we can actually distinguish them, like the microspore is actually transforming into this two substructure. One is the vegetative nucleus and the second one is generative cell. This generative cell is produced by the pollen mitosis. Then again it will undergo another set of mitosis and can produce two generative cells now, because usually two nuclei are responsible for entering the cell, because this generative cell are the one behaving as a sperm cell or the one that will take part in the process of fertilization. What about the fertilization? So we'll find that the ovule, which is there at the center right there, the ovule. So the ovule will take part in the entire process. The yet again one more thing, an ovule is produced from megaspore, and it is always that one megaspore produces one ovule only. But that megaspore, it arises from the megaspore mother cell, which actually take part in the meiotic division, yes, but that meiotic division will not produce multiple like megaspore, but rather it will actually lead to formation of only one megaspore. Means a megaspore mother cell will give rise to one megaspore, and from that megaspore we are going to get this ovule. So ultimately the ovule, though it is made up of total 7 cells, The main one responsible for it will be the egg, which is there down in the egg apparatus section, this one with two synergids they are present with it. So this egg is the one which take part in the main process of the fertilization, and the central one which will be transforming into the endospore later on. But we are concerned about this particular egg because the egg will be the one responsible for formation of the zygote and the embryo later on. But yes, whenever we consider a seed, it is an entire ovule is what is going to transform into the seed. So if we consider seed, then in that case we actually going to be concerned about the ovule, and at the same time we will be concerned about the megaspore, one megaspore. So one megaspore gives one ovule. That means that will be forming only one seed. So you have to keep that in mind. And one pollen grain is responsible for fertilizing one ovule. So that way, a pollen grain which carries two generative nuclei will not be considered here. We are concerned about one pollen grain, and that pollen grain will be responsible for fertilization of one ovule, and that pollen grain comes from one microspore. If we keep that in mind, then our answer will be the minimum number of ovules would be 300. Like it is mentioned, 300 viable seeds are there. So 300 viable seeds will have only 300 ovules inside, and each ovule will be fertilized by one pollen. So definitely there will be 300 ovules that are responsible there. Then the question was how many megaspore mother cells were involved. So there are 300 megaspore mother cells were involved because each megaspore mother cell is going to produce only one megaspore which will be transformed into one ovule. So that means if there are 300 ovules involved, that means there are 300 megaspore mother cells are involved. Next, the question was how many pollen grains were there. As is shown you in the previous slide, that there are 300 equal number of pollen grains are required. So there are 300 pollen grains that will be there involved in this entire process. Now the number of male gametes involved in the seed formation will be like for the formation of the as the question was for the formation of the endosperm, isn't it? Let's go back to the question. See, the question was how many male gametes are involved in the above case, isn't it? So here you can say that there will be like double the number of male gametes that are involved, isn't it? Because one gamete is responsible for fertilization of the zygote, and one gamete is responsible for the formation of the fertilization of the endosperm, isn't it? But like whenever we write this answer, at that time we can actually consider for the seed formation, the priority thing is always going to be like the zygote formation, isn't it? Because even if the endosperm develops, another thing develops, it doesn't matter until and unless the seed gives rise to a proper embryo. So we will be considering that embryo only because that is a major thing that is required. For that particular reason, for that concept in mind, it is always going to be 300 gametes are involved, because there is like always like the generative cells. Right here you can see the generative cell, it actually like always going to divide. It is always going to divide and give rise to two sperm cells, isn't it? Two gametes. But it doesn't matter, means every time we are going to we are going to be like constrain ourselves with that particular knowledge that one gamete is responsible for fertilization of another gamete, which is the egg. So definitely we will be saying that equal number of gametes are involved. Okay. But if it is asked otherwise, if it is mentioned that for the fertilization of both the things separately, then you can write the number as double, because each pollen grain will produce two male gametes inside. Now finally, the minimum number of microspore mother cell that will be involved in this particular process will be just you divide by 4, because each microspore mother cell will lead to 4 microspore tetrad, each forming one pollen. So that means there will be like like quarter number, means 1/4 number of the number of pollen grains that are there. That many number of microspore mother cells will be there involved. So 75 is a rough number. It can be considered here is actually the one number of yeah, it is 75 only. One quarter of it is 75 only. So that means number of microspore mother cells are required in this process. So that is how you're going to write the answer. See, the concept is completely different. You don't have to explain the entire concept in detail in large, but rather this writing it in this particular fashion will actually give you a score. This is 5 marks question where the entire answer you're able to write within like 5 lines, isn't it? So you may increase, like you can enrich your answer by writing 1 or 2 lines about each and every other point like it has been expressed. Okay, as I've explained you, so you can increase it by a line or two, but do not exceed the number, because means there is a word limit always going to be placed there. So you have to constrain yourself right there, isn't it? Let's go to another question. Let's take another quick example here. So it's a prepare a flow chart to depict the post fertilization event leading to viable seeds formation, right? So here in this case the flow chart, what you're going to find is like post fertilization events. It will be like for this particular answer, means you have to draw the entire thing in a flowchart manner. Flowchart means like I'll show you the answer there, but see, directly I'll show the answer only. So here's the thing. This is how the flowchart is always mentioned. Okay. So the flow chart, as you can see here, it is made up of like this like small diagram with some small statements written in it. And you know, in this particular way, you will be able to write the entire answer also, means the entire thing also. I'll pause the video right there. I'll wait for you to read the entire thing, because you can note it down. This is how you can actually answer the entire thing. Because the entire concept of the formation, everything is written there, and you have to write it like that way. It will be much better for you to write the answer right there. So you may pause the video, take note of this entire thing, whatever is written there, and you can use it as your answer. Next is like draw a label diagram of a matured embryo. Another problem with drawing the diagrams. See, the whenever this question is asked matured embryo, so you will be, it will be mentioned there whether you require the dicot, you're supposed to write the dicot embryo or the monocot embryo. But always in this case, like the whichever it is mentioned, you have to draw that one. See, this is the diagram of the dicot embryo, what it looks like, a matured dicot embryo, what it looks like. But many of the time I've seen that the students, they start drawing this particular diagram, which is actually the development. This is not the diagram depicting the matured embryo, but rather the development of the embryo. This is what is known as embryogenesis, and this is not asked in the question. You are supposed to mention only the diagram, only the final product, the finally what it will looks like. Even sometimes the student, they actually draw this particular diagram also, this one, the last piece. But no, that is also a mature embryo, true. But even like, yes, even if you draw this also, partly the it will be considered as a correct answer, because though you are showing the entire structure there, the suspense and everything is there, but still the matured embryo is still being shown. But you will not draw, sorry, you will not draw the entire thing. You will not draw the entire thing. Okay, so you will only draw this particular diagram. Next, if you're asked about the monocot, then monocot, you will draw this particular diagram. As you know, you have to practice it, practice the diagram as much as possible. Every single part is shown there. You're not supposed to answer. You're not, if not asked, don't write in description note about this. Just the diagram is enough. But even at that same time, students always tend to draw this particular diagram as a matured. This is the diagram for the seed, a monocot seed. This is not the diagram of a monocot embryo. It shows the monocot embryo there inside in this particular area, but this is not the correct answer. So that's why always try and draw as you have been instructed to. For that, you have to practice the diagrams that are there given in your NCERT book or any textbook you're following. Read the bottom figure line and you'll know the statement, like what that diagram actually means. So this is how you're supposed to answer. I've just picked up a few questions, these 3 questions for you to for your understanding, and I try to like explain it as much as possible. All right. So you have to draw it and you have to like do the entire thing like that particular way. Don't waste your time writing long answers. Constrain it as small as possible, as fine as possible, and don't exceed the word limit, definitely.